Hello, and welcome to Decorating Pages. I'm your host, Kim Wanup. Hello there, how's it going? Boy, everybody seemed to like that interview from the last episode with production designer Mark Scruton from Beetlejuice. And I really enjoyed it myself, and I was so glad that I got to speak to him. I think that movie is coming like on demand, like next week or something. It's like one of the quickest on-demand things that they've done, the turnaround. But I will tell you, I am excited to watch the movie again. I would buy it. I would own it. That's me. And then in my like bored moments of, working and just throwing something on TV, I put on the original Beetlejuice last week. Damn, it's so good. It holds up. You don't know what you're watching, but you accept this designed crazy world of Tim Burton and Bill Welsh and the original designer on the film. And it's so inspiring. That movie is so inspiring. So thanks to everyone who listened and watching all the YouTube videos. I still have, I think, 2 more to put up. I broke the interview down into little video segments where you can see his drawings, his computer renderings, and then the final sets. So that was fun too. And just making shorts and putting them up, and I'm hoping everyone is enjoying seeing his work as much as I did. And I've been doing that for a lot of probably the last year. So if you see an episode on your list for Decorating Pages and you're wondering, oh, is there some picture pages I can follow along with? There usually are. The Decorating Pages YouTube channel, you can follow along on a lot of these with set photos or set sketches and dressing photos and a lot of behind the scenes on there on the YouTube channel. So check that out if you'd like. I am watching Sister Wives, which I know every week I just can't even get started because I know this isn't a Sister Wives podcast, even though sometimes I wish it was. It's flooring. I'm floored every episode with these people. But let's talk about design. The Penguin. I know I talked about it last week. Production designer Kalina Ivanov, decorators Rich Murray, Rich Devine. The story is fantastic. The acting is superb. The sets are amazing. There was a sequence in this week's episode of flooding of the city that is like gut-wrenching. And it's great. Everything about it is great. Sorry. I love it. I can't wait every Sunday now for a new episode. Love it. Please check it out. It's so good. It's on HBO Max, whatever that is now. But this episode, I think, I'm no expert, kind of, but if you read the following books that I am going to suggest, I think you could skip a couple courses in film school. I think I've narrowed it down. I've got some good ones here for you, some really keen recommendations as a working set decorator to help you get into the business, to understand people's positions in this business, from editors, directors, actors. I've read a lot, and so here's my expertise on some books to read about the industry. I would say that I have a lot of reading here. Now, I don't usually do good when I have to read things. I usually just talk. When I have to read things is when you hear me mess up my words. That's usually, I don't know why. So I can't make any promises. I have a lot to read because for each of these books, I have broken it down into categories. Top 5 behind the scenes of Hollywood books that deals with the industry. I have another top 5 director books of directors in Hollywood and their process. Top 5 old Hollywood books, must-read lists for film lovers. If you love, old Hollywood books and stories, I got 5 good ones for you. And then just some essential reading of some great Hollywood stories. So I've broken it down, 5, 10, 15. So I got 20 books here, I think, that I'm going to recommend to you. And so here we go. Let's get started. I would say a year ago when the strike was going on, so more than a year. It's been over. This time last year, I was going back to work. I think a lot of people, and maybe even now, are second guessing our career paths in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry. I really wanted to get back to the passion of my job and what made me want to do this. Why are we all going through this? What is our daily passion of this? I mean, we're constantly fighting for pay or the frustrations of the day-to-day of how schedules are, and it's a very frustrating industry. So that's really too last summer when I developed the production design film study series that I did with my friends and my colleagues, because we were all off and we had time to watch movies and critique them with a design eye. And we looked at our craft and we appreciated it. And if you haven't listened to them, again, they're on the YouTube channels and they're on podcasts. Those really key into production design of films. They are the Academy Award nominated films of certain years. So I would definitely recommend my own podcast there if you're looking for that. And I still have 2 to put out. I know. Okay. But another thing that I did was when I went back to work last October. I have a very long commute every day that I bitch about constantly, almost every podcast. So I would say I just started to choose books because I listened to audiobook. I started to choose books that were about Hollywood, about movies, about people who make movies, about people who work in Hollywood, to try to see what other people's passions were or what I could learn. I love old Hollywood history and things like that, so this was an easy task for me. So I just tried to key into maybe what would you read if you were in film school? And what would you read if you wanted to be a director? I don't want to be a director. I'm fascinated by directors, and I love certain directors and their films, and I love the directors, the working habits with production designers, and you see that how some designers and directors have worked together many times. So that's fascinating to me. So I'm going to recommend these books. I'm going to do a little summary of each, and I'm going to tell you why I love it, and I'm going to tell you how or why this is a good book if you are in film school and what you can learn from it. So you can find all of these books on the Decorating Pages Amazon store. I've put them all in there. Click, click, click. And you can find that on the Decorating Pages podcast.com under shop, I believe. I believe that's what I did it. So let's start. All right, let's buckle down here. Let's start with top 5 behind the scenes books of Hollywood. I don't think these are in any particular order. I like one more than the other, but here are just 5, okay? Number 1, best movie year ever, How 1999 Blew Up the Big Screen by Brian Rafferty. So this book explores how the year of 1999 revolutionized the film industry with groundbreaking movies like, now get ready for this list, people. These films were all released in 1999. Hold your heads, because it might explode. The Matrix, Fight Club, Blair Witch Project, You've Got Mail, Life is Beautiful, Cruel Intentions, Talented Mr. Ripley, Saving Private Ryan, Rushmore, Go, Election, Elizabeth, Office Space, Run Lola Run, The Sixth Sense, Boys Don't Cry, Three Kings, Being John Malkovich, The Best Man, The Insider, The Virgin Suicides, American Beauty, American Movie, American Pie, Austin Powers, Toy Story 2, Notting Hill, Shakespeare in Love, The Green Mile, Bullfinger, Never Been Kissed, Dick, Rush Hour, Gods and Monsters, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Cider House Rules, and many more. It's mind-blowing. There are so many big budget movies in there. There are so many independent movies in there. I don't even know if that many movies have been released this year, let alone all of those movies being influential and good. It's crazy to me. And there's more. So the author dives into these films of why they left this lasting impact, the cultural changes at the time, the end of the millennium. He goes into the director and the actor dynamics, behind the scene anecdotes of the blockbuster films. I love when they give like tidbits of the movies, the unexpected success of independent films like Go and all those that are real. I think about Go, or what was that one? There was another one where it was like Go, but it was like more raunchy. Oh, I forget that one. And the influence of these films on modern cinema. Now, why I liked it is because the book captures a pivotal year of the film history, and it gives really in-depth details to transport you back into that era. Talking about release dates, how the films got made, how they did at the box office, and the Oscar race that falls into like historical things that year because of Shakespeare in Love beating Saving Private Ryan. And that comes up in many of these books that I read. It just captures exactly why 1999 was such a pivotal year in cinema, and it can be learned from. So your film school benefit, I think, it gives you a really comprehensive understanding of how cultural shifts influence filmmaking, i.e. independent films. Now, the 90s themselves are all about independent films to me. That's the era. 99 seemed to be like almost the breaking point where there weren't quite indies. Like they got too big for themselves, but still indies. You also learn about the importance of innovation in storytelling and critical screenwriting, all of those great stories, like American Beauty, like there's great screenplays there, Gods and Monsters, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels is so good. And it offers a case study of iconic movies that shape current film practices. So those movies are always kind of sort of being remade. Look how many times, comedies like Office Space have been made over the years. I mean, Jason Bateman has made a career out of it. So maybe that is my number one. I don't know. So that would be it. That's a great book. Number 2, The Academy and the Award. The Coming of Age of Oscar and the Academy of Motion Pictures of Arts and Sciences by Bruce Davis. This book offers an insider's view on how the Oscars evolved over the years, shedding light on significant moments and notable controversies in the award show history. Bruce Davis, the author, who was the executive director of the Academy for over 20 years, was given access to archives and states from the very beginning of why the Academy was formed, which was basically to settle disputes between actors and producers. It had nothing to do with awards when the Academy first came about. How the actual awards came into progress. There's so much about Cedric Gibbons and his influence of the graphics that first started out, and developing the look of the statue, the Oscar. It goes into the whole story of the Oscar, which is fantastic. Now, here's the thing I'm going to say. I have about 2 hours left of this book. I haven't even finished this book, and it's one of my favorites. I would say it's very detailed. It's like super detailed, to the extent of like going over minutes from meetings of Academy governors. So it's a lot. It's very in depth. But if you have an interest in the Academy Awards and like why do we celebrate this thing and why, like, it's very fascinating to me. Right now they're talking about how they couldn't visualize advertising to make money for the awards and putting it on television. And at first they only had like one sponsor. Like it's a crazy thing that they went through in the evolution of the Academy Awards to I'm sure the height of it, probably the 90s, 2000s, and then, the decline at some point. So I would say it's I don't know. I really like it. I think some people probably won't. I shouldn't put this number 2, because some people probably won't. I just think it's very in-depth. I'm just trying to warn you. But it's good. It's a lot of details. I love the glamour and the logistics of the award shows. We've talked about that so much in my previous episodes, so it's very enticing to me. And it gives such an insider's view of how the Oscars became this prestigious event that we know today. Your film school benefit, understanding the Academy's impact can enhance your networking skills, I think, within the industry. It's all about awards. This whole industry is about giving people an awards. Please, that's why we're here. It also gives insight of the politics of the film awards. Many of these things go over politics of awards, especially Harvey Weinstein. A lot of these books get into that. And the history of unions, producers, directors, and actors. That's really important. You should try to know that. We all should try to know why these things came about and what we're all fighting for. So I know I got 2 hours left, a little premature, suggesting this book, but I love it. I don't care. I like it. I'm bummed I only have 2 hours left. Number 3, Oscar Wars by Michael Schulman. Schulman. I love this book. Again, it's about the Oscars. He provides a gripping narrative of the intense rivalries, the backstabbing, the high-stakes drama that have defined the Oscars throughout its history. He focuses on several periods, so he breaks it up into the silent versus the sound, World War II, the Blacklist, New Hollywood. So there's different scenarios that he goes, but he goes into the Harvey Weinstein buying out so much advertising for Shakespeare in Love, and they had never seen so much advertising for that movie, I guess. And it blew Saving Private Ryan's out of the water, unfortunately. Talking points. Let's see. Historic rivalries and the impact of the awards. Memorable acceptance speeches and incidents throughout its history. And, the role of the media in shaping the Oscar narrative. That's important too. Again, I love it because it focuses on the controversies, the backstories I love. And let's see, film school, I think it highlights strategic decisions that filmmakers make for award season. You got to have strategy in this business. So that's key in picking up these things when you hear what other people did. You learn by people's mistakes or people's success. And the book gives perspective on how public perception shapes film narratives, how the audience reacts to a film versus the critics, how, your passion project might be a flop, but again, then it might win an Oscar. You know what I mean? No, you never know. But yeah, Oscar Wars, I really like that one. Okay, number 4. A Long Time Ago in a Cutting Room Far Away, Far Away, by Paul Hirsch. I love this book. I did not want it to end. Most of these I didn't want it to end. But this was so sweet, this man's career. He recounts his 50-year career as a film editor, touching on the films that made him famous, like, here we go with this list, Star Wars, Carrie, The Empire Strikes Back, Obsession, Blowout, Footloose, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Falling Down, Mission Impossible, and many more. Just that list. He started with Brian De Palma. He went over to George Lucas. Then he was in with, comedy. It's crazy. This guy's career was amazing. So he talks a lot about the art of film and editing and its impact on storytelling. I found that fascinating. There are some fabulous behind-the-scenes stories of Star Wars and all of these films, but mostly Star Wars, which I was just gripping. He talks about his collaborations with legendary directors like De Palma, George Lucas, John Hughes, Coppola. Getting in there with Tom Cruise. He's buddies with him. He gets a cake every Christmas. How editing techniques have evolved over the years. That was interesting. How his process in the very beginning to what it is now. And what I thought was very real about this was he really talks about the impact of taking these huge projects and the impact it had on his family for traveling and going, abroad to edit these things, or being away from his family for long periods of time for his career. So I think that's also very important to, realize that we've all taken time out of our family and friends to be in this business. This is a reality. Film school benefits. I think you will gain insight into the collaborative nature of filmmaking, essentially and especially about working effectively on a set. Editors, you have to be cutthroat. I don't know how else to put it, but you're alone in that editing room. Sometimes the director's with you or not, but you're shaping a lot of the narrative of films. Understanding editing techniques can really enhance your storytelling skills. So I think that's what you'll get out of this book. Practical tips and insights from a seasoned editor. I mean, we can't get any better for that. So any aspiring editors out there, this is a fantastic book. And I can't say enough about A Long Time Ago in a Cutting Room Far, Far Away by Paul Hirsch. Loved it. And then number 5. Okay, so here's the last one in this category. The Future Was Now, Mad Men Mavericks, and the Epic Sci-Fi Summer of 1982 by Chris Nashwati. I know I'm not saying that right. I did not realize, here's another thing, 1982 is the 1999 for sci-fi. It's crazy. They explore just the summer of 1982 when sci-fi movies came out in abundance. Let's get this list. E.T., Tron, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, Conan the Barbarian, Blade Runner, Poltergeist, The Thing, and Mad Max The Road Warrior were all released within 3 months of each other. Some were released on the same days. It's mind-boggling. This book gives a real behind the scenes of these classic sci-fi movies, tell how their directors got into these films. So it goes back into the director's previous films and to tell you how they got there into the sci-fi world, which I found fascinating. I love all that. And then the impact of these films on pop culture and sci-fi, like The Thing and Blade Runner bombed at the time. And I think they were released on the same day. They bombed. They were not a big hit when they first came out, which is crazy. And what's really crazy is Blade Runner being a bomb, and yet every movie since, design-wise, takes a piece of it a little bit. Like, it's just innate, like it's there. The design of Blade Runner is so influential in our community. It's crazy. So I loved it because I just love hearing the history of these movies and how they got together. I never knew about the whole thing with Steven Spielberg directing E.T. but he wrote Poltergeist, and he was kind of directing Poltergeist too, but then the DGA got involved. Like, that's a fascinating story. That's a great story in this book. So your film school benefits, I think it showcases how this genre can last to cultural impacts of this future. Like, all of those movies have impacted other movies, in that future. You're learning about risks also, because sci-fi was kind of laughed upon up until Star Wars, and then there was this boom. So it chronicles the making of the films like E.T. and Blade Runner, providing case studies in successful sci-fi film design. And I've one of my most precious moments on this podcast is talking to the production designer of E.T., Jim Bissell, and him just telling stories about E.T. is like mind-blowing to me that I even got to talk to him about it, and I cherish it. You can listen to that one. And it also offers perspective on how these films influence future movie landscapes. That's what I would say. So there you go. There's 5. There's 5 books I read that I do think are very behind the scenes of Hollywood. The structure of our awards, the structure of, films coming out, and how decades and time influence films. And yeah, so there's those top 5. I hope you like those. Again, they're on the decorator resources part of the Decorating Pages Amazon page, which you can find on the decoratingpages.podcast.com website under shop. It's a mouthful. All right, let's get into a specific here. I have 5 books of directors, and they're either biographies or their storytelling of their careers. And I am going to start with my favorite. Directed by James Burroughs, 5 decades of stories from the legendary director of Mary Tyler Moore, Taxi, Cheers, Frasier, Friends, Will and Grace, and more by James Burroughs. And he's the voice in the book. Like, he's audiobooking it. Like, he's narrating it. It's awesome. This book is awesome, especially because it goes into multicam, which a lot of people don't talk about. And it is the history of our television sitcom and shows. That's what it was at first. They were multicams. So it's fascinating to me, his career. He goes back from his dad, who was in, his dad was, what was his dad? No, I forget what his dad was. He was in the business. I don't think he was an actor, but his dad was in the business, and how he, got into it. He has directed more than 75 pilots that have gone to series and over 1,000 episodes of TV. So he's a masterclass. This is a masterclass of how to direct. He goes from the evolution of sitcoms under his direction, the Taxi set, the Cheers bar set. That set, Cheers, was designed by Richard Silbert, who is one of my favorite production designers. He did Dick Tracy, he did Chinatown, blah, blah, blah. So, now I have heard this before, that he was the only production designer ever to get residuals. And what James says in the book is that he got paid for his work, and then he said, I want to be paid $100 an episode. So, I don't know how many episodes he made, but that's not, like, that's what it should be. Maybe you guys out there, production designers or agents listening to this, maybe you should start putting that negotiation back in, because the designs live on and on. Think of how iconic the Cheers set is, and how many people have ripped that design off ever since. Like, $100 an episode doesn't seem like a lot, but if that show goes, it adds up. And it's just mentally fulfilling, or I would think like fulfilling of like, my design lives on and I'm being rewarded for that. I don't know. He goes over dialogue of the scripts, and then how he came up with staging from the dialogue, which I think is so important. He talks about his role as a director in shaping the series on a whole, and the arcs and the characters. He talks about the future of sitcoms and where TV is headed, and the ups and downs of multicam. Anyone in our business knows that the multicam really does ebb and flow. It really is like, oh, there's 5 on now, there's 50 on 10 years later. Like, it just does. I just love this book of directing all of these shows that I have watched and grew up with. I even went back, I think I said this, I've been watching Taxi. I've never seen it before. I hate that theme song. It scares me. But it's funny, and you can see the development of these characters early on, and it's just, and that set is gigantic. Oh my God, it's great. Okay. What was I going to say? Okay. For like your film school aspect of this, as I said, it's a total masterclass of a sitcom director. It's awesome. It provides practical advice on managing a set and directing actors. He talks about, getting in there with Ted Danson, getting in there with Shelley Long, or, David Schwimmer. Like, He talks all about that. And there's a lot of insight into directing styles that can enhance your ability to craft shows, understanding the nuances of comedic timing. He goes into that a lot, and that could aid you in filmmaking. So absolutely must read. James Burroughs, bravo for that book. Thank you for that. Number 2. Here we go. Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions, My 40-Something Years in Hollywood by Edward Zwick. I love Edward Zwick. I watched 30-something when I was way too young, and I loved it. And then I know that when I would see his name on other things, I would be so proud in a very weird way, or so happy to see, like, oh, he got out of TV, good for him. Like, who am I? This is what I'm thinking. It's like I'm a 10-year-old. So he shares his experiences in Hollywood, including the highs and lows of directing and producing movies. Some of his films are Blood Diamond, The Last Samurai, Legends of the Fall, Glory. From TV, he did 30-something and My So-Called Life. I just am a fan of his style. I'm a fan of his work. He had very early talent spotting with Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Denzel Washington, Claire Danes, Jared Leto. I love that he talks about TV and film. I think that's super important. His collaborations with Marshall Herskowitz. I know the name, and I can't even, when I look at it, I don't know. Marshall Herskowitz. And also Tom Cruise, another guy in with Tom Cruise. I think it's The Last Samurai. He also goes into something very interesting, is that I can't remember if he wrote or if he started to produce Shakespeare in Love, and he sued Harvey Weinstein over that title. It's a great, I'm not going to tell you what happened, but it's a really great little story in there. Harvey Weinstein comes up a lot in all of these books. So the influence of him and Miramax is incredible in a very good and bad way. And it's also Zwick's perspective on the changing of Hollywood throughout the years, which I loved. I loved his candid anecdotes revealing like him being really depressed about things, a flop, it was really hard, or dealing with hard actors. He didn't really get along with Matthew Broderick in Glory. Like, there's just really great stories here that are, from his heart, and he narrates it. Again, love that. I loved hearing his voice. And like the other books, he talks about his personal life and how, his family and his kids, and it's very unfiltered. I really can't tell you how great this book was. For your film school benefits, I think he talks about this like resilience, whether you build it up psychologically or like in your day-to-day, but like anyone pursuing film or television, you have to have a thick skin, and he sort of goes into that a lot. I think he talks too, you would learn about creative partnerships and collaborations. That's key. And maybe more business side. He goes because he produces a lot. He talks about the business side more of filmmaking. So I think that's a benefit for your film school. So yeah, again, love it, love it, love it. I love Edward Zwick. Another love. I can't go wrong. You can't go wrong. Number 3, Martin Scorsese, A Journey by Mary Pat Kelly. I was kind of bummed. There's a couple Scorsese books out there, and none I don't think were written by him, but this one interviews him in it. So that's why I chose this one. It covers his career and his personal life, offering insights into his filmmaking process and the themes that drove him to choose his projects. From Mean Street, he talks about Mean Streets, Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, King of Comedy, Last Temptation of Christ, and Goodfellas. I think it ends after Goodfellas. I forget what the last one is. But so much of his young life influenced his films, and they go into that. So this is like an interview style. So they talk to De Niro, or they talk to Harvey Keitel, or they talk to Irvin Winkler or Martin Scorsese. Like they just have bits and pieces while they're telling his biography. They've intertwined people's interviews in there. So it's kind of fascinating in that. I loved hearing about all of these iconic movies. I loved hearing the stories about Goodfellas. That was fantastic. And his friends and his family talk about it. Collaborating with recurring actors, De Niro, Paul Newman, Liza Minnelli, Nick Nolte. He collaborated with these people and you don't realize, I didn't realize that at all. And the impact that he has had on cinema is irreplaceable. Like it's you can't have our films today without Scorsese. The influence there is incredible. I also started to look into his film foundation. I think it's thefilmfoundation.com or .org. Check it out. It's all about restoring films, and UCLA and Los Angeles, they will have screenings of really old films that have been restored. I thought that was fascinating. I was trying to get to one, I haven't, but they have them in New York, London, and LA. I think those are the top cities that they have these screenings. But I loved this. I loved hearing all about his creative process. I found it truly inspiring for other filmmakers. His cinematic style is just, it's perfect, right? I mean, you can't think of his films and not think of particular shots. We all know about the oneer in Goodfellas, or like Taxi Driver when he's just pulling into him in the cab, or like, I don't know, there's so many shots that he has done that then people have redone and in celebration. I think Casino was one of my all-time favorite films also. I might love it better than Goodfellas. I was bummed they didn't get up to Casino, but yeah. So for your film school benefit, the studying of his techniques and can really like define your directorial approach. I think they give really great insights in here. His passion for storytelling and how he continuously went after The Last Temptation of Christ for like years and years trying to make that film was crazy. And the character building that he has as a director with actors, I thought that was fascinating too. So that's it, that Martin Scorsese book. I really enjoyed that one. This one, number 4, Cinema Speculation by Quentin Tarantino. This book just made me smile. I gotta say. I believe I read this a long time ago. I believe he narrates it too. I think I like that too. If not, then the guy who does it is doing an impression of him or something. So this book is a blend of film criticism, film theory. It's a memoir where he shares his insights on classic American films, filmmakers, and the movie industry. Organized around I guess it was just the 70s, the American films of the 70s, all of which he first saw as a young moviegoer at the time. This book is insightful and really entertaining, I gotta say. I really liked that he had such a unique perspective on classic films, and not like super classic films like a Scorsese's going back and doing like the 30s and 40s. He's like all 70s, which I also love the movies of the 70s. I think that's a great period of time too. There were so many movies in here that he talked about that I've never seen. And I just loved hearing how he would hit all of these theaters around Los Angeles for like double features on a Saturday. Or catching films on their second run, like at an old theater downtown. I just found that fascinating, and I was like looking up the theaters that he went to because I just thought it was great. But what you get out of this is a lot of film theory in understanding movies and why these movies you never heard of are important, and I like that. He has a lot of personal anecdotes, which tells his own story, like weaved in this, which I thought was great. And it's all of his influences and his inspirations that he talks about. So if you like Tarantino's films, you will like the films that he is talking about here. Your film school benefit, his perspective on genre and style can enhance your own filmmaking choices. I really believe like that, helps you. It encourages critical analysis of films. Like you can watch a film and be like, yeah, it was good because I liked it and it was great. Or you can really analyze, like he really analyzes these films and you're like, damn, dude, I didn't get that at all. I just thought it was like a car scene. I think it's really valuable in understanding how to break the conventional rules and creativity like he has done with his films, and he's influenced from these. And so, yeah, I would definitely recommend Cinema Speculation by Quentin Tarantino. I think it was great. Number 5, Making Movies by Sidney Lumet. All right, wait. Let me give you a summary. Legendary director Sidney Lumet gives a detailed account of the filmmaking process from pre-production to post-production, sharing his philosophy and practical tips on making movies. Let's go down his list of movies. 12 Angry Men, Serpico, Murder on the Orient Express, Dog Day Afternoon, Network, The Wiz, Death Trap, The Verdict, The Morning After, Running on Empty, Guilty as Sin, Gloria. And that's not even all of them. I mean, that career is... Come on. He has a unique approach in his storytelling. It's very personal. Everything is... there's no, bullshit about it. Like, he's very personal in describing why he chose projects, why he wanted these actors. And one of the most... these other books don't do, but what he does is he really does do a day in the life of a director, which I thought was fantastic, which I thought every PA should read that. I think from the moment he wakes up, even to like, I took a nap in my trailer, I was bored, like down to like what I got at Crafty, like that was his day. And he's giving you this real insight. And I think that's invaluable. He talks a lot about the director-actor relationship, which there is a bond. I mean, all of these directors say it. There is such a bond when you're directing someone. He talks about all of those films that I named. Now, here is the but. The but is this book was written in 1995, and the last chapter is very dated and almost laughable, I would say, because he does get to the point of like the predictions of cable television, like HBO will never get off the ground. Okay, now you lost me, Sydney. But don't listen to the last, don't listen to the last chapter, because I loved it. All of those films, and he talks about the production designer in there too, and working with him and getting the sets correct with his angles, and the cinematographer. He's very practical in his advice, and I think both like students and industry veterans would really appreciate this book. Again, maybe not the last paragraph. So for your film school, he focuses on the collaborative process that prepares you for real-world production. I would say that. This is real-world shit here. Understanding his ethical approach to storytelling, that is really in there too. Why he picked these projects, why he didn't pick some projects, why he let some go. So, I do. I think those 5 books, those 5 directors, Sidney Lumet, Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, Edward Zwick, and James Burroughs have 5 fantastic books to read if you just want to know about their process and their careers and what you can learn from them. Really spot on. Really beautiful. Well, I know. I like them. Okay. Sorry, I had to pause there and take a drink because my voice is giving out. It's crazy. So, next top 5. Top 5 old Hollywood books that are a must read for film lovers. Now, the glitz, the glamour of old Hollywood discussing these 5 fascinating books that offer deep insight into the illustrious history of Hollywood. That's how I worded that. I think I didn't get it there. Now, you can come and go with these books, but I'm telling you, there's something in these that give tips and excitement about how Hollywood used to be, or just the dazzle of it. I don't know. All right, here we go. Number 1. Elizabeth Taylor, The Grit and the Glamour of an Icon, written by Kate Anderson Bauer. Now, if you don't like Elizabeth Taylor or you don't care, but you cannot take away that woman's career. It's phenomenal. And how long she lasted and the impact that she had on this industry. It's incredible. It's an incredible read. The biography is a comprehensive look into the life of one of Hollywood's most iconic figures, Elizabeth Taylor. The book explores her complex personality, multiple marriages, groundbreaking film roles, and philanthropic efforts, particularly her activism in the fight against AIDS. In the first ever authorized biography from the Hollywood icon, Kate Anderson Bauer reveals the world through Elizabeth's eyes. Bauer uses Elizabeth's unpublished letters, diary entries, and off-the-record interviews, transcripts, as well as interviews with 250 of her closest friends and family to tell a full, unvarnished story of her remarkable career and her explosive private life. From age 12 in National Velvet to becoming the first to negotiate $1 million salary in film, to her 8 marriages, an enduring love affair with Richard Burton, her lifelong battle with addiction, and her courageous efforts with the AIDS as an AIDS activist. It's a lot. It's a big read. But I loved it. I loved hearing the intertwining of her relationships and her film choices. That is very interesting. And I don't know. I just really loved it. Her personal life, her early career. It's so sad when Mike Todd dies. I mean, I might have cried on this one. How the lust that she had with Burton, and then that Larry Kaczynski was so dumb apparently. The activism of AIDS and her fight for that. One of the very first people. She's a fashion icon. The jewels, they go into that. So I loved it. 4 reasons to help a person in film school behind the scenes. Understanding of iconic personas. So her personality and everything shapes what your film could be. If you had someone like this in your film, you got to learn how to deal with them. Character development insights to explore like her real life struggles and how that could happen in Hollywood and different situations. I mean, obviously all of this happened a really long time ago, but it's still relevant today. Lessons in resilience. She overcame a lot. She was a drug addict. She was alcohol, like the pain, the back, everything. I mean, the love of her life dying. Like she had a lot going on. And fashion. If you're in film school for fashion, I mean, having someone like her iconic style shows how wardrobe can enhance storytelling, and she was a very big part of her costumes on set. So yeah. I think it's a good read for someone who, if you love Hollywood, it's a good read. Okay, number 2. The Castle on Sunset. Life, Death, Love, Art, and Scandal at Hollywood's Chateau Marmont by Shawn Levy. So Shawn Levy's book takes readers inside the storied walls of Chateau Marmont, opened in 1929 as an apartment and then turned into a legendary hotel. And this narrative covers decades of history, the scandals, the secrets, the fascinating lives of the celebrities who stayed there, where director Nicholas Ray slept with his 16-year-old rebel without a cause, Natalie Wood. That's a crazy story. Jim Morrison swinging from the balconies, the fatal death of John Belushi. Lindsay Lohan got booted after racking up nearly $50,000 in charges in 2 months. it has a lot of historical significance for Hollywood. And I just loved the storytelling aspect of this, of the architecture of it, where it was, on Sunset. There was nothing around it when it was built. I liked all the scandals. It was a hideout for... First, it was kind of a hideout. I guess because I've only been in the bar. I've never been in a room. But I guess because of the layout of it and the design of it, it was such a hideout that you could go and no one would ever see you come in and out because of the back entrance. The design of it, the architectural beauty, I looked up a lot of pictures of this while I was reading it. And it was they say right in there, was kind of a dump. And people liked it like that. So that's crazy. And then it goes through the history of the owners and how in the 90s, it got new ownership and then became this expensive hotel. So it's had a very big cultural impact on popular Hollywood. So reasons for film school. Why? So you learn how locations influence narratives and character arcs. And that's about storytelling. And this book has a really good story about a building. I mean, networking tips. Understanding the social dynamics of Hollywood through the stories of famous guests. You're going to go there. You're going to go to the bar, right? Art and culture context. Gain insight into artistic movements that shape the film industry. It definitely goes through the flappers and then the 60s and then the 80s. It shows you in the decades of this one hotel the influence of Hollywood and in the eras of popular culture. And then scandal and how to explore controversy can become an integral part of film marketing. Film marketing, something that we haven't really talked about, but that's big. The marketing of your movie is a big thing, and I think that this scandal and storytelling they have in here can dive you in there a little bit. So yeah. Okay, number 3. Let's move on. The Long Goodbye by Sam Wasson. Oh, God, I love this movie. I love this book. And I read it so long ago, I kind of almost want to read it again. It is a behind-the-scenes description about the making of Chinatown, discussion of the changes in the film from the end of the studio era into the emergence of independent producers. It goes into Polanski, Nicholson, Evans, and even some good stories about Faye Dunaway. And like I said before, they talk a lot about Dick Silbert, about this and his production design on this film. So that's another reason why I loved it. So I don't even know if he read it. There's also another book that I want to read from this author. What is it? Sam Wasson, Path to Paradise, a Francis Ford Coppola story. If anybody's read that, let me know if it's worth it. I really like this author, so I don't know. But it gives such great details into getting a movie made and Robert Evans' fight for this as the head of Paramount, and then bringing Polanski on and getting Nicholson involved, and Nicholson I think had read it before Polanski, and there was a whole thing, and the troubles with Faye on set, and how doing a period piece in the 70s or the 40s, I think, yeah, it's really good. And they talk a lot about the locations of the film. It's really good. So 4 reasons this would help a film student, I think. It really gives a lot of this film analysis and the steps about film being made. It's a genre evolution because, like I said, of the dating back like in the 70s, what the 40s meant to the 70s, and looking at the design style of this film. The character study, I mean, that screenplay is legendary. And then learning about the development of it. And the visual storytelling techniques that it talks about. Learning the cinematography impacts of the audience. That was, they talk a lot about too, about the cinematography. So I really like that. I'm telling you, I read it so long ago, but I remembered it and put it on the list. The Long Goodbye by Sam Wasson. Number 4. Now we get into some old Hollywood. Tinseltown, Murder, Morphine, and Madness at the Dawn of Hollywood by William J. Mann. So this book delves into one of Hollywood's oldest mysteries, the murder of director William Desmond Taylor. The book offers a thrilling narrative that combines true crime, history, and a deep dive into the early days of Hollywood. Sources including recently released FBI files to uncover the story of this director and the diverse group of people who he surrounded himself with, including 3 beautiful, ambitious actresses, a horrible stage mother, a devoted valet, and a gang of 2-bit thugs, any of whom could have killed him. It's a really fascinating story of this director who got killed. And to me, it also pairs off into the scandals of the time of old Hollywood, how Hollywood was conducting itself. And this guy was murdered, and the first thing they did was call the studio heads to come and like clear out his apartment of any evidence that could lead to like other actors or people like that they didn't want, put into this scenario of killing him. They didn't call the police first. They called the studio heads. It's crazy. It's a crazy story. There's just, I think, William Desmond Taylor, I didn't really know any of his work, but it's fascinating to hear about old-time directors. I'm not going to lie. I liked it. A lot of early Hollywood, a lot of, I was looking up, Googling places that they were talking about or trying to figure out where his house was that he was murdered. It's a real dark side of Hollywood, I would say. So film school benefits to this book is like a historical context of understanding the grittiness of old Hollywood. It wasn't all glamour and glitzy. So your historical sense of Hollywood. And I think researching, I know like we all research things, but researching old Hollywood and learning about how actors, directors conducted their lives to get projects done, and it goes, the 3 actresses that he was involved with is very fascinating because one I had never heard of, but she was very popular, and then the other one was like trying to make her way up, and it just gives an old scenario of Hollywood of like actresses and casting couches and things like that. So I like this book for that. I like to give like, an old Hollywood sort of theme to where it all came from. And then number 5 is another murder. I'm not going to lie. A murder. It's called A Murder in Hollywood, the untold story of Tinseltown's most shocking crime. Now that could be the title of the last one. I don't know. Author Casey Sherman. But this book is absolutely fascinating. This book uncovers the untold story of the shocking crime that rocked Hollywood. The book presents a thorough investigation and provides new insights into a scandal that has been shrouded in mystery for years. Lana Turner seemed to have it all at the time, like this big career. She had a beautiful daughter, fame, fortune, all of that. But then she got involved with this mobster, Johnny Stepanato, and he was involved with Mickey Cohen, the mob boss. We all know that, right? And her personal life becomes violent. He was beat her. He was a yeller. And Lana's teenage daughter, Cheryl, watched her mom get beat. And eventually, so the story goes, she killed him. Again, instead of calling the police, they call the studio to come over and like fix it. So it's a crazy story. It's a crazy, absolute crazy story because, spoiler, the daughter didn't really do it. And then Lana Turner let her daughter take the heat for it, and she went to jail and like juvie, and like, it's a crazy story. And how he died and how the mob was involved. I mean, I never knew this about Lana Turner. It was crazy. So I think it really is a story. I don't know if this has been made into a movie, but I really think it should. Maybe there's your film school. There's your film. reasons I think it's good for someone in film school. It's understanding crime in the media. Every the paparazzi and all of that, and making actors so important, and the media has such a role in that. And also, I think this would make a really good documentary. I think a documentary style of storytelling in this book is really good. And it had a huge cultural impact at the time on Hollywood and actresses. And she was like the biggest actress. She was like the number one at the time. And then I think she like replaced like Joan Crawford. That's how big she was. Lana Turner was like huge. So there it is. There's 5 books that go into very deep, detailed, rich history in Hollywood. Scandals, secrets, Hollywood icons. I just think, as on a sense, those 5 books really deep dive into some Hollywood backstories. So yeah, those are another 5. Now, let's wrap it up a little bit. I have some essential reading for great Hollywood stories. I just think if you're going to pick up a book, these should absolutely be on your coffee table and or in your audiobook library. Number one, The Film Music of John Williams, Riveting Hollywood's Classic Style by Emilio Arezzo. So this book tells the life story of John Williams, who, if you don't know who John Williams is, you just get out of here. Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones, like every great musical piece that you've heard in cinema, he has essentially done and or influenced. And he brought the big orchestra back pretty much into films. It was there, and then it had gone away in like soundtracks in the 60s and 70s, and then he brought it back, this big thunderous orchestra, and it is so impactful in cinema. And his story about Jaws and giving the shark a voice through music, or the Indiana Jones, and it's just, all of the stories in this are really great. And his father was a musicianist. It's just so, I don't know. I really liked it. I think really for a film student, understanding the impact of a great score on your film, you can't underestimate that at all. Using music as a character, collaborating with the director, the music, and the legacy of John Williams and his work on and the impact that he has had on filmmakers and composers in the film industry is remarkable. So totally recommending that one, the film music of John Williams. And I'm so bummed because they do that John Williams night every year at the Hollywood Bowl, and I always miss it. I'm always so bummed. Oh well. All right, another one. This book is by a producer. A Life in Movies, Stories from 50 Years in Hollywood, from Irvin Winkler. Now, Irvin Winkler was recently in the news because he produced Rocky, Goodfellas, Raging Bull, The Lovely, The Right Stuff, Creed. His films have been nominated for 52 Academy Awards, including 5 movies for Best Picture. He has won 12. He shares an incredible journey in this book through half a century in Hollywood, from producing classics like Rocky, navigating the industry's ups and downs, projects he didn't take, projects he should have taken. Again, the impact on his family. He goes into the importance of resilience in Hollywood, the evolution of storytelling in cinema. So this memoir, I would say, is a real treasure of anyone interested in understanding the producing aspects in Hollywood. So he was recently in the news because he produced Rocky, and he makes it sound in the film that he's very collaborative with Sylvester Stallone, but Sylvester Stallone has another take on that. And I guess producing wise, he owns Rocky, not Stallone, which I never knew that. So I kind of think he's a little shady too, but he's a producer. So maybe he just worked a great deal for himself. I don't know. But reasons for film students to read this. Networking strategies. He talks so much about, meeting these people and never forgetting this face, and just insights into building really strong relationships in the industry. He has really good production insights about the roles of filmmaking and producing, which even after reading the book, I'm like, what does he do? Like, how did he do that? Like, all of a sudden he's just like in a meeting and then he got the movie. There are some beats that are missed here, but you understand the process of how they're getting these movies made. And recognizing the importance of mentorship. He was a mentor to many people and learning the film industries, the veterans, and I just think he's a good egg. I don't know. The Stallone thing threw me because it literally came out like right after I was reading this, and I was like, oh man, I thought he was a good guy. But I don't know. I still really like the book, and I think it's a good one. So I'm going to leave it at that. The next book, I am telling you, you got to read. I laughed out loud and I bawled my eyes out to the extent of I sat in my car and finished the chapter because I couldn't turn it off. It's so good and it's so moving. I just can't say enough about it. The Friday Afternoon Club, a memoir of Griffin Dunne, is fantastic. It reflects on his family's legacy within the entertainment industry, intertwining personal stories with cultural narratives. Now, I must say, some of his stories intertwine with history of Hollywood a little too much. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you were really there that day, or I don't know, there's just so much coincidence in a lot of his stories, but I think that's just dramatic storytelling. I'll give him that. The book explores his growing up with his father, Dominic Dunne, and he had a brother and a sister, and it talks a lot about his growing up and then realizing he wanted to be an actor and being like poor and like not having anywhere to live, and who knew he was like best friends with Carrie Fisher his whole life. That's crazy. And what really emotionally got me is that he is the brother of Dominique Dunne, who was the young actress in Poltergeist, which we read about earlier. And she was brutally murdered by her boyfriend / stalker. And he gives such a detailed experience of his family. I could break down right now, of his family going through that and watching his sister die and the impact it had on him as an actor, and his father and his mother and his brother, and just a family coming together for this brutal tragedy. It set his father on a different path to, if you know, to become a writer about basically Hollywood murder trials. He is part of the Menendez history of writing about them. He's part about OJ. I mean, he was a very well respected writer for Vanity Fair. Griffin Dunne just popped up in the episode of last night. I was watching Murders in the Building, so I was glad to see him around. He also narrates this, which is especially touching, that he's talking about his sister and his father and his family like this. So to me, I have told everyone I know about this book. I can't tell you enough. Film school. Do I have anything? I don't know. How to write down your memoir. I don't know. It's a very good telling of someone making their way in Hollywood. I would say that as an actor. And being, like I said, not really successful in the beginning. And then getting into a Scorsese film. Like, that was crazy. Or I guess he was American Werewolf in London, and then he got this Scorsese film. And then he produces a lot of films, and kind of shied away from the acting. So just to hear about his career also was really good. I'm telling you, a really good book. Okay, how many more do I have left? Because I'm a little. All right, I think I got one left. All right, one or two. Okay, the last one is also a tearjerker. I gotta say, I'm ending it on a down note here. Life's Work, a memoir by David Milch. I love David Milch. I even loved John from Cincinnati or whatever that shit thing was. I tried to understand it. I tried to be a fan. I don't care. He is the genius behind the iconic series of Deadwood and NYPD Blue. I believe he started on St. Elsewhere. It's a very raw and honest exploration of his life as a TV writer. He opens up about his creative process, his personal battles, gambling and drugs and alcohol, and lessons learned along the way. He emphasizes the importance of authenticity in storytelling. It's a great book if you're a writer. And the emotional toll of that creative journey, of how not demons, but like in his head he would get when he would be writing. It's very candid reflections. It's very, very inspiring, I think, to writers, and illustrating that his vulnerability can lead to very powerful narratives. It's a real testament, this book, to the passion and perseverance required to succeed in the industry. As he is writing this, he is drifting on into dementia. And that's where you start to feel like by the end of the book, you can tell the writing is slowed down, and his verbiage is slowed down. It's very sad that a mind can be diminished like that. So I think for a film school student, it really helps understanding the writer's journey from conception to script. The character developments, he goes a lot into that. And being, real and authentic in your writing voice. Maintaining is a very unique type of verbiage that he would use. Even, and NYPD Blue to Deadwood, it was almost like Shakespeare. It was very lyrical in a sense, his writing. So yeah, that's a great book. Okay. All right. Last one. I was wrong. Here's the last one. Ending on a high note, people. Life Isn't Everything. Mike Nichols as remembered by 150 of his closest friends. This is such a great book. It is a tribute to the legendary director Mike Nichols, offering up a unique glimpse into his life through the eyes of those who knew him and his friends. They are writers, actors. They just tell about his charm and his artistic vision. It celebrates him as like a film director in theater, his work as a comedian, and a real collection of stories about his filmmaking, and just a couple of his list. The Graduate, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Angels in America, The Birdcage, Working Girl, Primary Colors, and then plays like Barefoot in the Park and The Odd Couple. And if there wasn't enough, he started out with the timelessly funny comedic duo of Nichols and May, which is brilliant. If you haven't seen Nichols and May, please go YouTube that and get your laugh on. I just loved hearing all the behind the scenes of his life, which wasn't easy either. I think it was that his parents came over from Germany. There was that whole thing and the war and getting his life. He came from nothing. So just a great story too, because like the Scorsese book, it has different people giving their stories about him, and there was not just one voice. So I like that. For film school, I think there's a lot of directorial insight here about his style and his impact of storytelling. Absolutely teamwork. I mean, with that list of films, he's worked with some of the great actors and been able to collaborate with them. He has a legacy and influence in this industry. So yeah, I would recommend that one too. So there you go. There's 20 books I have read, in almost all of them the last year. A couple of them a little longer, but yeah, it's a big commute every day, people. So again, if you would like to purchase any of these and get a quick link to them, they're on the Decorating Pages podcast.com under shop in the Amazon store, under decorator resources, and they are all there, all for you. Yeah. So next week, I think if all of us can get together, because we were just thrown a huge curveball of reshooting something this week, production designer Jamie Walker McCall and art director Ryan Garten and myself will talk about Dr. Odyssey. We're going to try to get that, but we're pretty busy. So that will be next week's episode. I thank you for listening to this, and I'll put out a little videos of this so visually you can see what I'm talking about. Little videos, little TikToks or little YouTubes for it. Well, I can do it on any platform you want. I'm very versatile these days. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this podcast, and thank you for listening. I know I gave you an earful. I am your host, Kim Wanup, for Decorating Pages.